Dozens of memoirs about addiction have arrived on shelves, and often bestseller lists, in recent decades.
Whether the books are about alcohol, drugs, food or another substance, the books follow a time-worn arc. The narrator samples and then is hooked by the substance, then begins to spend all of his or her time procuring and ingesting it, hits bottom and then shakes the habit, either with the help of a 12-step program or by some other means. Leslie Jamison's sharply intelligent and deeply personal The Recovering both follows this narrative and calls its simplicity into question. The author of the empathy exam is a recovering alcoholic. She started drinking at 12 and kept on until she was in her late 20s. Like many, she found Alcoholics Anonymous useful in her bumpy journey towards sobriety.
That journey is at the heart of her book. What distinguishes it from so many others is that its author pays at least as much attention to her complicated experience of sobriety as to the drunkalogue that precedes it.
Jamison reverses the usual formula, so that her experiences while drinking sound, as they normally felt to her, repetitive and boring. Wanting it, getting it, wanting it again, she writes. And more. Again. Forever.
She typically drank alone, often to the point of blacking out, concealing her drinking from those she cared about.
She tried to quit alcohol several times on her own, and then at least twice with the help of AA, with a long relapse in between. Jamison doesn't sugarcoat the ease of this process.
Effort saturated everything. She writes about her often bleak days, as her relationship with a long-term boyfriend fell apart and she found herself unable to do much beyond put in her shifts at the bakery where she made and decorated seasonal sugar cookies.
On the other hand, she discovered that sobriety is fundamentally full of unpredictability, miraculous, harrowing.
She consciously places her story in the context of others, whether they're the people she encounters at one meeting after another or the famous 20th century writers who turned to alcohol or drugs and sometimes were able to turn away from them.
Jamison attended the famous, and famously alcohol-soaked, Iowa Writers' Workshop at the University of Iowa in Iowa City, and some of the old drunk legends who taught there are her subjects. Poet John Berryman, who committed suicide after many unsuccessful attempts, and short story writer Raymond Carver, grateful for recovery, are among them.
She also reaches out beyond Iowa City, perceptively analyzing Stephen King's The Shining as the story of a failed recovery set in a twisted version of rehab, and finds David Foster Wallace's Infinite Jest full of people like me. People who were trying to outsmart recovery but still sought affirmation from its rituals.
Their stories weave in and out of Jamison's, resonating with them. She finds fresh truth in her own story of recovery, using specific details to communicate both the uniqueness of her experience and its commonality.